Maybe there's some grasses that come down. Welcome to my channel. My name is Carl. I'm a Bob Ross certified painting instructor. I thought today we'd do a fantastic forest scene. So get your paints ready or sit back and relax. Let's go up to the canvas. Up here I have a 16 by 20 canvas. I've prepped it with a little bit of black gesso. So you can see I used a paper towel and a foam brush to kind of prep a forest scene. The black gesso is dry, and then I covered the canvas with a very thin coat of liquid clear. And the liquid clear is wet, so we can move and slide paint. And let's get started. So I'm going to take a knife and we're going to mix up a little bit of the white and phthalo blue. So we're going to do a kind of a quick little background sky. Now, because I have liquid clear on there, normally we use liquid white. That kind of diffuses the color. So we want to be pretty accurate, being that there's only clear on the canvas. So just a little bit, and we're just looking for a little bit of color. Maybe a little blue sky is coming through the forest. And some of this will even be covered up, but here and there, just doing X strokes. Yeah, maybe something like that. And don't worry if it covers some of the big trees. We'll go back over those. I don't know, I thought this would be kind of a fun painting. These black gessos are really nice. One thing I like about them is you can kind of prep your scene and then, add the oil paint on top. So, all right, now I'm going to mix up a little bit of sap green and maybe a little bit of this blue color. And then let's take a little bit of black. And let's just see how it looks. I'm going to go in with the same brush. And I don't want a lot of paint. And then here and there, I just want to kind of start getting in some color. There won't be a lot of detail back here. So I'm just kind of scrubbing in some color. So I'm just really trying to get some different green tones. And we'll probably go back in here later and change the flavor. So just vary it. And you can see some of the black gesso coming through. I think that adds a lot. Ooh, and look at that. Maybe there's a little bit of light coming through. And the one nice thing when we have this, one of the nice things about black gesso is that dark color is established for us. So who knows, maybe this kind of just comes in here. And look at that, we can start really shaping without having to really add a lot of paint. I hardly have any paint on here. I'm just kind of scrubbing in. Who knows, maybe there's a tree right in here, distant tree. And if you look, the little bit of white we added in that green mixture, looks like maybe light is cascading through this forest scene. Just tapping. I still want some of that sky to come through. There. It looks like there's so much detail back there, and we really haven't had to do a whole bunch. Just scrubbing in some color. All right, I'm going to take that same mixture. I'm going to scoop it up, and I'm going to add a little bit more black. Maybe a hint of some alizarin crimson. This is a little bit darker. I'm just going to put it in, scrub it in here. There, look at that. And see, it just kind of changes up the tones. There, you can kind of see that. It's a little bit darker. And I'm going to take a filbert brush. There's extra details. Maybe there's some trees, evergreens that are just enjoying themselves. And all we catch is just some of the branches coming out here. And I'm just scrubbing, kind of just scrubbing and sliding. There. Maybe the indication of some evergreen trees back here. This would be a fun forest to just go walking through. Maybe bring your camera, take some pictures of critters. And I'm going to go in here, I'm going to add a little sap green, just to vary some of the colors. So I'm just scrubbing in just some sap green. Think like shaping the tree a little bit. And there's other bushes and things. And if you want to use very light pressure, that'll also push things into the distance. So very soft, light pressure. I'm going to take a fan brush, go into a little bit of the dark sienna, a little bit of Van Dyke. Let's even go darker than that. Be a little black. There, I'm just pulling straight down. There. There's a tree. So we're going to start shaping some of these trees. All right, I'm going to go back in and I'm back to my 1-inch brush. I'm going to go back into that green color. And let's just kind of mix this up a little bit more. Just soften it a little bit. And who knows, maybe back here we'll just do some very light X strokes. There. And I'm just kind of softening those trees. There. They look farther away. And then let's bring in a little bit more of that green color and maybe a hint of white. And watch, we're just gonna, there we go. Just kind of dance around. Maybe there's some things happening down there. Be a little bit of yellow. I want it to be very subtle though. Just some subtle things happening. Not much detail. Yeah. And then I'm just kind of like a whisper. Pushing those trees back. Another 1-inch brush. And let's go into a little bit of that yellow. But I want this to be maybe a little bit of yellow ochre in there. I want this to be very, very subtle. A little bit of the phthalo blue. Indications back here. Maybe there's just some things happening. Maybe even a little bit more green. I don't want it to be too dark or too light. So you can kind of start to see just little indications back there, but very, very dark. Again, not much detail, but it's enough to give us that illusion of something in the distance. All right, let's go back let's take some of that Van Dyke, some black, and let's mix up these tree colors here. And these are going to be our more dominant trees. You know what, and I'm going to go in with a little bit more sienna. There. This is a big old tree. And when we start adding these details, this is going to push everything else in the distance. Maybe this tree just, right there. So I'm really scrubbing. You can probably hear it. And look at some of these edge textures on the tree. I think think it adds something, looks like bark or something like that. Maybe this one comes down right there. We'll put some bushes and things around the trees. There. And maybe this one comes all the way down. It's a big, big, powerful tree. And then I'm going to go back into that 1-inch brush with that green mixture, and I'm going to bring in a little bit more yellow. And then maybe just back here, still subtle. I'm just tapping in some bushes and things. But I want it to be subtle. Maybe you go back into a little bit of darker color. So I just darkened it a little bit. And leave a lot of the dark. Remember, that dark really adds depth to your picture. All right, now we get to have some fun. So let's mix up. I'm going to take some of that dark mixture, that brown mixture with some sienna. And let's bring in a little bit of white. So if I start touching, you can start creating the bark texture. And then it's going to mix with what's on the canvas. So we have the dark kind of brown. Now it'll take some time, but if I keep working it like that, so you can start seeing that texture of bark, and I'm working left and right, and it'll mix. And it'll create that illusion of all these things happening. Maybe down here it gets a little bit. So I'm just kind of like touching, and sometimes it helps if I flip it, I can see that edge a little bit better. Who knows, maybe this comes through here. And again, I'm just tapping and pressing. See, it's picking up some of that darker color, and I'm just wrapping around there. Really a fun technique. Who knows, maybe this comes out. Just create the illusion of some roots coming out there. There I'm adding a little bit more blue to the shadow side. It's your world, you can do whatever you'd like. Just tapping. So it does take some time. You could certainly use the fan brush. But I do like the knife in that it gives such a cool texture. Just kind of wrapping around. Okay, so let's go into alizarin crimson. I'm going to go right into that highlight mixture. Maybe a little bit of the Indian yellow. Yeah, the light's hitting there. Let's go back over here. That's one nice thing with the knife is, you can kind of play around with thickness. Maybe the tree's just having some light zing on it here and there. Maybe some very bright spots. And you can kind of, as you touch the canvas, you can kind of like dull it down. Some light cascading through the forest and just glistening off the tree bark. And then who knows, let's just have some fun. Maybe there's a little bit of extra warmth right on one of the sides here. So I just did a little red. Just playing with color. There. And then let's go into some of that yellow and maybe a little bit of white. I'm going to thin it down a touch. And who knows, maybe back here, maybe in the distance. Just some light sources zinging through. Not much. And then let's darken it. So I have just that kind of that base color we had. Let's start with a little darker and then maybe at the base. I want darker than that even. Let's go a little darker. Yeah. So maybe this comes up here. Maybe there's some grasses that come down. And I'm just tapping and thinking of how the land at the base of the tree would be. So maybe this comes through here. And because we have the black gesso, look at, I didn't have to add any dark because of that black gesso. And maybe this one comes right here, leaving some of those dark layers. There. And who knows, maybe this kind of has a little bump right there. All right, I am going to go into a little bit of the Indian yellow and cad yellow. So maybe this is a little bit brighter, and maybe right in here we have just some more indications of some things coming through. So tap, 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 tap. And maybe back here. And let's take a little bit of the black, a little bit of the sap green. I want this to be pretty dark, and I have that dark base brush, so this is the 1-inch brush. Just some bushes. Maybe we'll have a few right there. Be right at the base of the tree. So rounded side up. And then we can take that same brush and just let's tap in some grasses. It's not all going to have highlights. You know, maybe just here and there. Maybe there's a few that are coming right up to the base. Tap, tap, tap. There. Save some of those darks, remember that. Maybe there's a little light coming through there. All right, I'm going to take a clean 1-inch brush and a little bit of, I'm going to go into a little bit of white. And just here and there, I'm going to put some extra highlights. Like maybe there's just a few catching some of the light. Look at that. Yep, I think right in here, there needs to be another bush coming around. Just right there. So let's take this is the 1-inch brush. I think that just kind of balances the picture a little bit more. And with that, I think we have a completed painting. I'm going to sign it. I really hope you enjoyed this forest scene. Check out my website at carlvaughnartistry.com. If you like this video, please give it a like, as it really helps my channel grow. Happy painting. See you next time.